Hey everybody, this is Robert from Black Belt Gaming. It's been quite a stretch since my last update regarding the Marvel heroic role-playing game. Wanted to get back into that some, and tonight I thought I would talk a little bit about plot points. Plot points are a way to enhance your character's actions. It gives you a better chance at succeeding. And when you start the game, your character begins with one plot point for your hero. Your character has one plot point to use. But you can gain those as you play the game. For something to represent plot points at the table, you can use poker chips, glass beads, coins, anything. Just to help you keep track of how many plot points you have. You're going to be bringing those in and then tossing those back out once you spend them. Well, let's start by taking a look at how you would spend plot points before you roll the dice. Remember, we took a look before at Spider-Man's data file, and we saw how to take the dice as we worked our way down the data file to make our dice pool. Well, one of the first things you can choose to do if you want to increase your chances of success is to spend your plot point to add a push dice or a push die to your pool. It allows you to take a d6 and add it to all the other dice that you've got. As it says right in the rule book, this is the very basic thing. It's the least interesting thing. It just gives you another die to throw in there, and you do that when you just can't really think of anything else to do. So if you got a plot point, you need a little boost, spend it, and you'll toss in a d6 into your die pool to help you. Well, what does that d6 mean as far as the story goes? Well, it's easy to come up with a few things. It represents a moment of luck, or some minor edge or extra effort on your part to get things done. You really don't have to explain it, but you can if you want to. Well, let's move down to the next one. Add in an extra trait from a trait group. Before, we took a look at Spider-Man's data file, and we saw how you kind of run down the data file taking a die from each of these categories as you run down the data file, the character sheet. And remember, you were only taking one die. But let's say you had a plot point to spend, and you did have something creative that you wanted to do. So instead of just putting in a d6 for the push die and not really having to worry about explaining anything, let's say you wanted to combine two dice from your specialties. And you're in the middle of a combat. There are several thugs around with weapons. And you decide that it's very much in the spirit of Spider-Man to use his acrobatics along with his skills in combat. So you decide to spend your plot point to not only use your combat expert, but to also make use of your acrobatics ability in this particular fight. Really combining a way to flip around and vault over one guy and kick another guy and then roll on the floor and come up and punch the other guy that was back behind you. Something like that, some creative description to carry the action along. So by spending your plot point, you get to not only take your combat die, but you get to add in your acrobatics dice. Normally, you're only allowed to take one die from a distinction, using it as a d8. But let's say you've come up with a way to explain how you're not only the friendly neighborhood hero, but you're also working in your wisecracker distinction there, and you spend a plot point. So you've not only got the d8 from there, but you've got two d8s from there. Instead of doing one of those other actions, maybe you decide to spend your plot point to put together 2 dice from your Spider Powers power set. You decide to use your superhuman reflexes to quickly grab the attacker's wrist and then combine that with your superhuman strength in order to pick him up and throw him across the room. You know, it can be as simple as that. So, several ways there that you can choose 2 dice from the same category and put them together. You just need a plot point to do that. Another option there is to add a stunt die for your power set or specialty. In this first publication that came out, the book that I have, around page 20 you can find some information on performing stunts. And it will tell you it's a bit more powerful than using it for a push die of a D6. A stunt allows you a thematic way to add a little more to your powers in a particular situation. It usually comes with some cool description of what your hero is doing. So let's see, what's something that Spider-Man could do? Well, Spider-Man has his web-slinging power, and he can use his webs as a weapon. But let's say within the course of the story there are broken bits of a building lying around. Maybe it's some deserted area or construction site, whatever. And maybe there's a stack of bricks over there or a crumbling bit of wall. You might want to say that Spider-Man uses his web-slinging ability to shoot a web and grab on to a big chunk of concrete or several bricks. And then after he's got a hold of them, he pulls it and spins it around and around and around and throws it right at the big villain standing in front of him. So we're not only using this for a weapon, but with this cool stunt by picking up some pieces of the environment and using it also in combination with his web-slinging weapon ability. That little stunt allows you an extra D8. There's maybe one little note here to keep in mind. We're going to talk more about the Watcher and the Doom Pool in the future, but sometimes when the opposition, the Watcher, is rolling his or her dice and rolls a 1, it's called an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you. And you can spend your plot point to use that 1 on the dice against the Watcher and create a stunt that you can use in your die pool. And because you've used it off of an opportunity from the Watcher when your opponent rolled a 1, that stunt dice, or that stunt die, actually gets pumped up to a D10, not just a D8. So I don't want to get too complex, but just a little note that we'll probably come back to later when we're talking about the Watcher and the Doom Pool and rolling opportunities. Well, the last one listed here that you do before you roll the dice, you can activate certain special effects titled SFX in a power set. As far as our discussions go, this is actually nothing new. We talked about this when we were going through Spider-Man's data file. When you're using a plot point to power up an SFX, that's explained over here in the data file. So we talked about this before. Spider Sense. Spend 1 plot point to add enhanced senses to your die pool. That means even if you've already got a die pulled from here, you can add the enhanced senses die, which is a D8. Or let's say for your particular action or reaction you're already using enhanced senses, but you've got a plot point. Well, you can spend that plot point to boost it up by 1 step. So it says, or step it up by +1 if it's already in your pool. So if you're already using enhanced senses and you've got your plot point and you spend it, that will jump up to a D10. That's what that +1 means. And roll all dice on a reaction. So you're responding to something. Basically, this is saying that you're basically using Spider-Man's spider sense to help protect himself. Well, why don't we cut this video off here? This is about plot points and when you spin them before you roll the dice. So we'll continue up with the next video talking about plot points that you will spend after you roll.